Hello everyone. Today in this video we'll talk about another very interesting concept in mathematics, which is LCM and HCF. LCM stands for least common multiple and HCF stands for highest common factor. Why are we doing a video on this? We are doing a video on this because whenever you are attempting an examination which has a component of arithmetics or aptitude, you're definitely going to find a question which relates to LCM and HCF. These functions of LCM and HCF also relate to real world implications, and we'll try to understand those implications using real world examples going ahead. So without taking much time, let us jump into it. Let us start with understanding LCM and HCF, and let us try to find out what are the various ways of identifying and finding LCMs and HCFs of a given set of numbers. The first topic which we'll cover is LCM, which stands for least common multiple. Well, this is a very long term. What does least common multiple actually mean? Let us try to understand LCM using a real world example. I have two persons with me. The first person is Ram and the second person is Shyam. Ram has a scooter and Shyam has a motorcycle. They both go to tuition classes to meet their teacher, which is, let's say, Mohan. The problem is petrol prices are very high, so Ram cannot afford to go to the tuition classes on his scooter every day, and Shyam also cannot afford to take his bike to tuition classes every day. So what they do as an alternative, Ram goes to tuition classes every second day of the month, and Shyam goes to tuition classes only on the every third day of the month. So if we plot the days of the month here, 1, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th, we see that if Ram went on the first day, he will again go on the third day, he will again go on the fifth day, he will go on the seventh day, he will go on the ninth day. Whereas if Shyam went to tuition classes on the first day, the next day he will go to tuition is on the first day, the next day he will go to tuition is on the 7th, and the next day he will go to tuition is on the 10th. Now this has created a big challenge for Mohan. Mohan had taken an examination and he now wants to distribute the results of that exam. And for the results, both Ram and Shyam should be present in the classes. So what does Mohan do? Mohan tries to identify those days when both Ram and Shyam will be available on the same day. So Ram and Shyam both were in the tuition center on the first date. The next earliest date when both of them will be at the tuition center is on the 7th, which is 6 days after the first. You know what this is? This is the least common multiple of 2 and 3. It's very simple. So what does least common multiple actually mean? That if you are given a set of numbers A, B and C, what is that number D which can be divided by all these three, A, B and C, and is the first number on the number line to do so. First number on the number line. You know what a number line is, right? A number line is a straight line where the numbers are plotted from 0 to positive numbers on the right and 0 with the negative numbers on the left. So D is such a number which can be divided by A, B and C, and it is the first number on the number line, which means it is the smallest number on the number line which can be divided by all A, B and C, which we saw in the earliest example. 6th day was the earliest day which can be divided by both 2 and 3. So this solves the problem of what is LCM. Having said that, let us try to find out what are the ways of finding an LCM of a given set of numbers. So suppose, for an example, I have two numbers. I have a number 12 and I have a number 15. What would be the LCM of these two numbers? As I said, I have to find a number which would be divisible by both 12 and divisible by 15, but it needs to be the smallest such number. To find an LCM, what we generally do is we try to break down each of these numbers in their smallest prime multiples. When I say smallest prime multiples, what it actually means is we need to find out the smallest prime numbers which when multiplied leads to 12 and 15. So we take 12 and we start with the smallest prime number. We know 1 is the smallest prime number, but we ignore 1 in this case because it is a multiplication process. The next largest prime number is 2. Is 12 divisible by 2? Yes, 12 is divisible by 2. What remains after dividing 12 by 2? The number which remains is 6. We again try to break 6 down into its prime multiples. So we already had 2 from here. We break 6 down again with the first prime number 2. We know 6 can be divided by 2. So we put 2 here and the number which remains is 3. Now you can see 2, 2 and 3, which are the smallest prime numbers. 3 cannot be further subdivided. So the factors of 12 are 2, 2 and 3. We do same with 15. We divide it into smallest prime factors. Now we know 2 cannot divide 15. Can 3 divide 15? Yes, 3 can divide 15. So we take 3 and what the number remains is 5. 5 cannot be further subdivided because it is itself a prime number. So we note down the prime factors of 15. So which is 3 and 5. What we do next is we try to identify what are the common prime numbers in both these two sets. We have one set of numbers here and we have second set of numbers here. What are the common prime factors here? We have a 3 which is common, so we take 3 down, and then we identify what are those numbers which are not common. So 2 is not common, we take 2 down here. This 2 is not common, we take this 2 down here, and 5 in this set again is a singleton, so we take this down here. When we multiply these set of numbers, which is 3 into 2, 6 into 12 and into 5, which is 16. So 3 into 2 is 6, 6 into 2 is 12, 12 into 5 is 60. 60 becomes the LCM of 12 and 15. 60 is the lowest number which can be divided by both 12 and 15. Let us come around to HCF. HCF stands for highest common factor. This is again a very long term. So let us take another real world example and understand what highest common factor actually means. Using the earlier example of Ram and Shyam, let us imagine that Ram goes to the tuition classes every second day and Shyam goes to tuition classes every fourth day. If we plot the days of the month and plot the days on which Ram and Shyam go to the tuition classes. So Ram will go on the first date, then Ram will again go on the third, then Ram will go on the fifth, Ram will go on the seventh, and Ram will go on the ninth. Shyam, if he goes on the first, then he will next go on the fifth, then he will next go on the ninth. What you can see is that the days on which both of them go are these. Okay. Now imagine there is another person who is John. John also goes to the same tuition classes. However, John is a big miser. He does not want to spend any money on petrol. So what he thinks, or plans rather, that he will either take a help from Ram or Shyam and piggyback on their scooters and motorcycles to go to the tuition classes. For that to happen, what John will have to identify that what are those dates on which either of Ram or Shyam go to the tuition classes. So Ram and Shyam go on the first, then only Ram goes on the third, then Ram and Shyam both go on the fifth, then Ram goes on the seventh, and Ram and Shyam go on the ninth. Having identified those days, now John decides that he will go to the classes on the first, on the third, on the fifth, on the seventh, and on the ninth, so that he can either go with Ram on his scooter or with Shyam on his motorcycle. And what do you see that? You see that between these dates there is a gap of 2. So what this means is that 2 is the highest common factor of the numbers 2 and 4, which basically means 2 is the highest number which can divide both 2 and 4. Having understood highest common factor, let us try to find out ways and means to identify a highest common factor for a given set of numbers. Before doing so, let us again reaffirm what we understood. For a highest common factor, we need to identify a number A which can divide another set of numbers B, C and D, and A is the largest number which can do that, which can divide B, C and D. Having said that, the method of finding HCF is similar to the method of finding LCM in that respect that we need to divide the given set of numbers into its prime factors. Let us say, for an example, we need to find the highest common factor of a set of numbers of 6, 18 and 30. What would be the highest common factor of 6, 18 and 30? We know that we can divide 6 into 2 into 3. We know that we can divide 18 into 2 into 3 into 3. We know we can divide 30 into 2 into 3 into 5. The highest common factor would be that set of prime numbers which would be common in all these three sets. So we have 2 and 3 number in 6, which is common in this number, which is again common in this number. So the highest common factor of 6, 18 and 30 would be 2 into 3, which is equal to 6. There are many methods to identify LCMs and HCFs. For LCM, the best method is to break it down into its prime factors and then calculate. However, for HCF, there is another method which might be useful for you to know. So let's say if you want to identify the HCF of two numbers, let's say it's 20 and 50. What would be the HCF of these two numbers? What we do in this case is we take the first number and we start dividing the second number with the first number till we reach a point where the remainder is 0. So 20 multiplied 2 times gives you 40, the remainder is 10. Then we use the remainder and divide the first number with that remainder. So 10 multiplied by 2 gives me 20 and the remainder becomes 0 when the quotient is 10. And in this case, the quotient becomes the HCF. So the HCF of 20 and 50 will be 10. This is another method of finding HCF which might be useful if you encounter large numbers which is very difficult to break down into its prime factors. With this, we come to a conclusion of this video, and I do hope that this video was useful for you and will also help you understand the concept of HCF and LCM, which you can also use in your day-to-day lives. Thank you and keep watching Samved.